Good evening. I'm your host, Karen Udis, in this series on the network of global corporate control. Today's segment is live, a question and answer on the global currency reset. Thanks to DCTV, to Carmen Stanley, studio producer and director, Maurice Jackson, audio and teleprompter, and Gabriel Altston, floor director. Next week's segment is about martial law, and also we're going to be talking a little bit about what's the other topic? I've forgotten. Anyway, that's going to be pre-recorded. I would like to begin with a tweet from Alfonso. I always try to read your apportations, but they seem confusing or complicated to read. Is there a chance you can make them more friendly? I'm not sure I know what an apportation is. I looked it up and couldn't figure it out. Yes, I will try to make things more friendly. If I'm still making things too confusing or complicated, please call me on it. When things are confusing, this means that I'm not thinking clearly myself. Please let me know whenever I'm unclear. I mean it. One way to make things more simple is to give people background information so that we're all on the same page, without boring people who have heard it all before. What we mean by the global currency reset is ending the corruption in the world's money. This corruption is very widespread and can be ended by exposing the corruption and by replacing paper currencies issued by the banking cartel. We've been exposing the corruption in this series for the last 2 years. You can catch up by watching some of the previous segments. A good place to start is by watching the 3 segments which YouTube refused to upload on the military, gold, and secret societies. The banking cartel and the rest of humanity are now in a direct duel with me as overseer mandate trustee embedded in the Board of Governors of the World Bank and International Monetary Fund, and in the rest of humanity. I'm going to tell everyone what's happening. You all will be the first to know if the banking cartel runs from this battle. There's absolutely no possible scenario for the banking cartel to win. This is from a Twitter account called Karma. Karen, aren't you afraid for your life? Many whistleblowers, especially after 9/11, died mysteriously. What kind of question is that? Are you threatening me? In the comment sections for the last 4 segments of the series, followers in my social media focused and we discussed on plans for the global currency reset. We're talking about the Coalition for the Rule of Law, which includes the members of the Board of Governors who are responsible for the global debt facility containing the world's assets and monetary gold reserves. The World Bank and IMF were created at the end of World War II to manage the world's monetary gold reserves and the rest of the world's assets. I'm authorized to speak on behalf of the 189 ministers of finance and development on the World Bank and IMF's Board of Governors. I represent the United States until the United States Constitution of 1789 goes back into effect. I use the letterhead of the World Bank. That means I'm writing on World Bank stationery. A question from Kim Cox Cooper. It's starting to be comical that there's supposedly so much positive change on the horizon with the global currency reset, but no action USA. This is simply not true. A lot of necessary work is going on right now, and I've got a clip that talks about some of this. Coalition for the Rule of Law that's in charge is now consolidating. We're having a conversation from a person on Facebook. She said, "You do not know everything." This person was mad at me because she gave me some disinformation, and I responded by saying that I didn't want to continue to deal with her. I acknowledge that I do not know everything. It's going to take everyone working together for a long time before we learn what we need to know. In the meantime, we certainly know enough to exchange paper currencies and stop the flow of funding to the banking cartel. That's our first priority. Think of a butterfly that emerges from its cocoon that has to wait for its wings to strengthen before flying. That is where the Coalition for the Rule of Law is in the global currency reset. I'm waiting for the people following me to learn where we are and to confirm this back to me. The counters on the internet are unreliable. Still, I can see that a lot of people read my tweets, and they confirm that martial law in the United States is over, and the capture of the courts it's also over, all the way up to the U.S. Supreme Court, which has been captured by the banking cartel. The banking cartel broke a critical link in a tweet which confirmed the existence of martial law, and this link contained Sandra Day O'Connor's admission that the Supreme Court was not openly admitting the martial law, but it was explaining it away. You may have to type in the link yourself. When the banking cartel broke the link, I just retweeted it. The banking cartel broke a link showing that the armed services of the United States remain loyal to the U.S. Constitution of 1789 and not to the rogue banking cartel and its agents. And one of their agents is General Dunford. Right now, it appears as if the banking cartel is trying to convince people of a different reality. There is only one reality. Either we succeed in having a global currency reset and exchange the banking cartel worthless paper currency for local currencies issued by villages and towns and national currencies out of the world's monetary gold reserves in the global debt facility, or we all will perish. Why do I say this? I know this from the power transition model that came to the World Bank from the National War College in 2004, and it is 90 to 95% accurate. The corruption in the paper money is now in full view thanks to DCTV and to the people who are all working to spread the word. Some agents of the banking cartel named Jim Willie and Kos Janssen tried to trick people into thinking that the banking cartel has the United States monetary gold reserves. They did this with a bogus Freedom of Information Act request, which I exposed as a hoax. The documents supposedly released by the Treasury are fake. There was no physical audit of gold held by the Federal Reserve. The Fed has no gold. In reality, there has only been a fraudulent paper audit. How do I know this? It's because the Treasury and Office of Inspector General audit was only done by looking at a paper schedule. The qualified language of the Office of Inspector General saying that they simply did a paper audit, and the language to this effect in the schedule was removed from the internet. Then I located the report showing that there was only a paper audit of the gold held by using a Wayback Machine on the internet. I exposed this hoax on the DCTV segment on March 7, 2017. Kos Janssen and Jim Willie have not defended themselves because they, just like Donald Trump, Neil Gorsuch, General Joseph Dunford Jr., Muriel Bowser, Sandy Okoro, and Peter Newsham, are lying. I am a caretaker and vote the United States shares on the Board of Governors of the World Bank and IMF until the U.S. Constitution of 1789 goes back into effect. The world's monetary gold reserves will be coming out to replace the paper currencies of the banking cartel. In the meantime, the culprits who are trying to prevent this from happening owe us under the commercial liens that are now mature. I mailed Donald Trump, Joseph Dunford, Renwick Payne, Muriel Bowser, and Peter Newsham the final notice on January 3, 2017, and I tweeted this, and you can see this in the teleprompter. These bit actors got a total of 3 notices and didn't bother responding. Donald Trump is not the legitimate president of the United States. The U.S. Constitution of 1789 is not in force and effect, and the Electoral College could not put Donald Trump into power. Donald Trump is a bit actor and nothing more. He is now bankrupt under a commercial lien held by me and the Global Debt Facility. I'm sitting in the center of humanity. People want there to be a global currency reset to end the corruption in the money system. At the moment, a critical mass of people know that there is going to be a global currency reset and that I'm speaking for them. In the middle of November 2016, I heard from some healers that there was a lot of turmoil. At the end of November, I wrote a Japanese journalist that I thought we had reached the turning point, and I'll read you what I wrote to her. It was on the 27th of November 2016. Subject, Ray, on Panama Papers. Ordinary people's name in Japan were used. Thanks for this gem on how Mossack Fonseca stole the identities of people in Japan and then used their names to make companies. Corporate law is going to be changed in the global currency reset. I hope you're doing well. I'm thinking about what the healer said about there being a lot of turmoil a couple of weeks ago. Based on what I'm now able to tweet and the way people are responding, I'm reasonably certain that we have now reached and passed the turning point. I think my arrest, and this is because I was arrested on the day before Thanksgiving by the Banking Cartel. It was their last-ditch effort to stop our progress. It obviously failed. I think we're going to be making a lot of progress now. And that's the end of my letter to the Japanese journalist. I struck back at the Banking Cartel for arresting me last November 23rd by beginning the commercial lien process to bankrupt the agents of the Banking Cartel who arrested me. The most viral tweet was last week when I described my face-to-face confrontation with agents of the Banking Cartel. And I'll read you from what I put out on the social media on Monday the 22nd. I met, that was on the 21st, with agents of the Banking Cartel to ask them to concede. None of them would acknowledge that they were agents. However, it was very satisfying to confront them face-to-face. One of these people had been involved when an Israeli agent gave me a concussion with a karate chop on my neck beneath my chin. Here is an interesting tweet that can give you an idea who I was meeting with, and that's in the teleprompter. We're still at the crossroads. I'm working with all of humanity at this point and keeping you all informed. I'm filing some more commercial liens today, that was on the 21st, against the agents of the Banking Cartel. Some interesting items that were posted a couple of years ago, and I wanted to remind you about them. I'm giving you the links in the teleprompter. One of these things is proof that there was a nuke off the coast of Charleston on the 7th of October 2013, and the heroes who fired the nuke instead of dropping it on Charleston, they were fired from the military. How to protect yourself against the Banking Cartel financially and otherwise, and questions and answers about global instability that I answered a couple of years ago. One error was that I still believed at that time some of the lies that Wolfgang Struck was telling me, but I have now learned otherwise. And I also have tweeted patents on mind control and a comment in Russia today that the United States citizens are regaining control of their runaway government, and some information about what was happening with the UK Parliament. Another viral tweet responded to a question on YouTube about the bar, and this was from a Gary Murphy. If you could reply, Karen, that would be great. A quick question on the bar legal system worldwide. Can you confirm or disconfirm that BAR stands for British Accredited Registry? I would love to know this for certain. I've heard a lot of very knowledgeable people say it is, but would love a source for the evidence. You recently stated that you didn't swear an oath to the bar when you became a lawyer. Can you elaborate further on the role of the bar in global affairs, and how does this overlap with the Universal Postal Union in Switzerland? Thanks for your work. YouTube erased my answer from the archive for DCTV's segment, and that must have meant that the Banking Cartel thought it was a good answer. And so I tweeted that whenever YouTube erases my answers, I simply come up with a better answer to teach them not to delete my answers. And I said now, and I'm telling you all, that this is a huge question. I've seen the same articles on the internet about what BAR stands for. The hidden question has to do with how capital letters stand for the bonds issued on the capital markets for birth certificates. I'm tweeting this answer now. You're talking about admiralty law or commercial law and common law systems. The entire legal profession has been complicit with the banking cartel. The legal profession has succeeded in discrediting itself. I've been dealing with this question on many different posts. The non-lawyers are going to be we're going to end the corruption, and we're going to be using common law. The transition is going to have to be worked out by all of humanity. Just one of the questions is going to have to be how to resolve legal disputes that are currently in the disreputable courts. I'll give you a couple of links to get started. As far as the Universal Postal Union in Switzerland goes, that is the forum that the banking cartel has opted for. That forum has been totally discredited after the banking cartel ignored my notarial protest on the $2 quadrillion in the Treaty of Versailles bonds that were issued by the Federal Reserve. I always try to punish the banking cartel by improving the answers which they erase. So let me add another response. The reason we don't need the legal profession, the accounting profession, and journalists is because people don't trust them, and for good reason. The lawyers, the accountants, and the journalists have shown themselves to be corrupt, and what is more, they have pretended up until this very moment that they are above reproach. The best word to describe this behavior is recalcitrant. One of the ways we can tell these professions are corrupt is because they have tried to hide what they're doing by deliberately making things complicated. In the legal professions, one lawyer invented the term gobbledygook to describe this. Maury Maverick was the first lawyer who warned another lawyer, stay off the gobbledygook language. It only fouls people up. The people in the United States got so mad at lawyers' gobbledygook that they amended the United States Constitution to protect themselves from lawyers. The lawyers fought back by erasing the amendment, And then the lawyers decided to enact a hidden constitution for good measure. And the lawyers decided to louse up the courts so nobody would find out what they had done. If you think that this could not possibly be true, here is a meeting of citizens in Charleston who researched their state house records. The whole house of cards has now caught up with the culprits. The point now for us is to figure out how to set things right. The lawyers, the accountants, and journalists have undermined their professions and discredited themselves. I will add in a website on America's corrupt legal system and a previous post from 2015 about the corrupt accounting system. On the 17th of May, Wolfgang Struck tried for the umpteenth time to steal the assets in the global debt facility. When I prevented this attempt, another of the banking cartel's agents tried to steal half of the gold, diamonds, and platinum in the global debt facility. In the meantime, people need to start small discussion groups and get the merchants in your local villages and towns to accept local currencies. We'll be talking more about how to accomplish this, but there are many different ways to do it. These are grassroots activities. You don't need anybody's help. The more you can accomplish on your own, the better off we all will be. I'm leaving the most difficult subject for last. This is a vast topic and one that all of humanity is going to need to tackle as soon as we clear up our corrupt money system. It's the topic of evil. I've mentioned Satan in 2 tweets, noting both times that this was a subject that the banking cartel wanted to get us bogged down in so that we wouldn't notice the problem with money. I'll introduce these issues and then we can discuss them later. I decided to find out who the guy who posted something on my Facebook page was, and I don't know if you're seeing this, but it was a series of dates when various cities and countries were incorporated. The governments were changed into companies. I found Michael Shepard's Facebook page and some intriguing posts. Michael Shepard has a lot to say about who Hitler was, but he left out what Sean Harose told us about Hitler, that the head of the snake, that's the Swiss Templars, and the network of global corporate control, and the pharaonic bloodlines were Hitler's masters. As I told you on April 11th, Winston Churchill, Hitler, Mao Zedong, and Stalin were all agents of the banking cartel. I have tweeted Red Ice's interview of Dennis Wise about his 6.5-hour documentary called Adolf Hitler, The Greatest Story Never Told. Red Ice said that the interview has taken the internet by storm. It has been hailed as the single most important media contribution in the last 70 years. 13 people called attention to my tweet by marking it as their favorite, and 19 people retweeted it. The question, why is Michael pointing his finger at the Rothschilds and why, when they're actually ranking knights of the garter? As we've seen many times, the real culprits, the pharaonic bloodlines, Swiss octagons, Templars, are hiding behind the Rothschilds. So we've been programmed to believe many layers of lies. We're now peeling this onion, and you missed this tweet about the head of the snake. On the rest of the pages, I have been talking about the documentation that Michael Shepard is recommending. He seems to be getting people very riled up about the disinformation, but the fact is he's left out crucial information himself. And I'm doing my level best to tell you everything I found out about. But as you have seen, this puzzle is very complicated. And we're all going to have to work together in the global currency reset. We're not going to be harming people, or all of us are going to end up in World War III, and few of us will survive. We can be offended by what people have done, and we can certainly call them out, but we are not going to be harming them, or we will all be cooked. The last couple of days, agents of the banking cartel were trying to steal humanity's wealth and land us all in World War III. I'm talking about some people, about whether it's time to start, I'm talking with various people about whether it's time to start threatening these people who are holding us back from the currency reset when we've exposed so much. It's hard to draw the line. The point is, it's time for the banking cartel to concede that humanity has won so that we can start exchanging paper currencies for the gold that's owned by humanity. There are no shortcuts in figuring out who's telling the truth. And I guess what you want me to do is to give the outro, right? No. Okay. Well, I've got 3 minutes. That's fabulous. Then let me tell you about a comment on my Facebook, which I think is probably the most important thing. This was from a person in Detroit who was saying that the people that she was dealing with really couldn't get involved in all of these details. They just didn't want to trouble themselves with it, and that there were people that were working very hard to get them riled up. And what she noticed was that people seem to be interconnected somehow, and that they know that something good is happening, and they know this unconsciously, just because we are all interconnected. And they're not going to be rioting, because we are actually all interconnected. This is the reason why I'm very optimistic, because I'm simply working along with everybody, and the fact that I'm still here, I say many times that I think I'm the canary in the coal mine. As long as I'm okay, then we know that we're in the transition. And there are other people who are working alongside me. There is not a single day that I go to sleep that I haven't told everybody everything I know. We're all on the same page with this. And so we're all going to be working together, and we're not going to be rushing to do anything. We're just going to be taking our time, setting things right. And one of the things that I wanted to be talking about, there are a lot of characteristics that we have in humanity. One of the most important characteristics is our kindness and empathy, and this is going to stand us in good stead during the transition. I want to thank you for listening to another segment of the Network of Global Corporate Control. In this week's segment, you've seen how the Coalition for the Rule of Law is working together in the global currency reset. Until next week, I'm your host, Karen Udis.